welcome to the panel dedicated to the biggest trends of hyper-casual market in 2021. Today here with me, some experts, well-known experts of the industry. Tamara Feynman, business coordinator at Europe, the Middle East, Africa at Line Studios. Sami Guillemot, publishing manager, third-party coordinator at Ketchapp. Daniel Kastner, publishing manager at Moonee, and Junde Yu, general manager of game at Penny, and moderator, me, Alexander Nikiforov, senior publishing manager of Homa Games. So, guys, let's start right from the biggest trends we see right now in the market. Junde, you as a representative of any market watcher, I would say, like aggregator of information, what are the current trends that you're seeing? Have any of them surprised you so far?
Great. Thank you very much, Alexander, and great to see everyone here. So we're at Penny. So I'm going to drop some trends, all right? So I think the biggest hyper-casual subgenres that we see today by downloads, firstly, these days we see puzzle and trivia, which I think a lot of our guests here are also very big and dominant on. That's the biggest subgenre by downloads, followed by runners and racing games, and then by simulation. And then next, in terms of in-app purchase revenues, although I know this is not one of the main monetization for hyper-casual games, but the aiming and shooting games actually get the highest in-app purchase amongst hyper-casual, followed by .io games and puzzle and trivia games. And then finally, in terms of time spent, which is also a great indicator of potential for ad monetization, it's led by puzzle trivia games, runner racing games, and .io games. And in terms of one trend that surprised me that has lasted quite long as well and is still growing, I think it's the competitive multiplayer feature amongst casual games. It currently ranks number 2 as the second biggest gameplay and social feature when we look at how all these different gameplay and social features can contribute to downloads and active users of casual games.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sami, do you have anything to add? Some other trends that you have noticed?
Yeah, totally. I mean, well, specifically to the hyper-casual genres, we've seen many surprising things. I think like the one that surprised me the most is probably the hyper-sexualization of hyper-casual characters that we saw recently, in terms of both characters and themes. Of course, sex sells, and it always did, and this whatever the area you're working in. But I mean, the mobile gaming market is very specific. We have Apple, Google, most of the ad networks that are not exactly known for being huge fans of suggestive content, and still we've seen many games trying to surf on this suggestive approach theme. So it was a surprise for me, because it brings a lot of randomness to the potential scaling of your game. Like what will happen if your best creative is taken down, for example, because your app is too borderline. So it was really a surprise. And it's interesting to see that we see many studios and developers trying to surf on the border between what's acceptable and what's not, trying to bend a bit the rule. So it was the biggest surprise, but then there are plenty of stuff that are just the continuation of things we've seen for quite a while already. I mean, the stacking trend that evolved into the body stacking that we continue to see on all the possible existing themes. The ASMRization of pretty much all the genres. It's like historically we saw ASMR arrive with under the simulation genre banner, but now we tend to see it more and more melted to other kind of core gameplays. Like one of the best recent examples we have is probably Slice It All from Atomic Games and Voodoo, which combines both a classic runner approach, and a very ASMR-ish spectacle. So yeah, this kind of natural evolution, I think we'll continue to see them, and they are very interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Sami, for bringing up some interesting themes and talking about like hypersexualization and other things that we see right now. Do you guys think that it's coming from the games or as themselves, or it's coming from the, let's say, other sources like of information, of socializing, and so on. Where do players see that usually, and why do they want to see this in hyper casual games?
I can start. Like first of all, I'd like to highlight that trends might be multiple and in different aspects, like of the game itself. So like art, mechanic, theme, some specific gameplay elements. All of that can vary and like burn out as trends at different rates. So it's obvious that we see now like a lot of female centristic runners with more realistic art, like less cartoonish, less abstract. And important to mention that visual reflection of the gameplay is important. So all of that, like might be like as a source, like might be source somewhere, might be just a continuation of the development and of the progression of hyper casual. And of course, before we were saying that the games should be YouTubeable, like then games were like Instagrammable, and right now games are definitely are entering already like hyper casual special, especially they are in TikTok. So like social networks are like for youngsters, like Snapchat and TikTok are like one of the main sources. Not, I wouldn't say for inspiration, but it's a main platform and ground for hyper casual these days.
Yeah, if I may add, so as you mentioned, there are many sources, as we all know, like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and of course, TikTok. And recently, we have seen a shift audience from Facebook to really TikTok, which is a main factor when we consider, testing in game and looking on potential trend. For example, Makeover One, which we just, got to the market, it had more than 4 million views on TikTok videos made by the game fan, which is crazy. Not stuff we did, but actually the game fan did before we even published the game on TikTok. It really shows the potential in this, platform. So if now we tested prototype on Facebook to understand and predict its potential, we really need to put our eyes on TikTok as well, not just because the big audience there, but also, the combination with our ability to reach those users over there as the TikTok UA platform really evolved to a place that fit our, hyper casual games. So I think it's really safe to say that TikTok will become a major tool for us as publishers for prototype testing as well, in order to predict the trends and opportunities. I do want to emphasize that I think that there are more interesting audiences on Pinterest and Reddit, but the UA options there are much more limited these days than on TikTok.
Thank you, thank you, Junda. Do you think that those trends that were mentioned before, they're coming mostly from the high attention of female audience to the hyper casual games, and right now, creating the game for the pure, let's say, male audience is like a dead end, and it's better to focus on a female audience or try to mix.
Um, so there's definitely huge growth of female gamers over the last year, basically because they came from a smaller base. So there's huge growth when you come from a smaller base, and we see huge growth, particularly for female gamers in the Tamagotchi, interactive story, and lifestyle customization subgenres. So these are particular ones that have a huge skew towards female gamers. So I don't think there's I'm a male gamer and I play a mix of casual stuff and core stuff. So I think there's still a huge market there for male gamers, especially a lot in developing countries. But I think the growth of female gamers does open up more avenues for more possibilities for monetization as well, especially for brand advertising and especially for the upcoming change. No, sorry, not upcoming, but the changes with iOS 14, where we're not able to identify specific profiles of people within top games, but it's useful for brands to be able to target specific games with a specific gender or age bias. So all these casual games, they could open up a lot of monetization opportunities with brands.
Okay, okay. Sami, Daniel, Tamara, maybe you can share with us, like in the companies that you work with, like for the ideation, inspirations. Do you take into consideration for whom you're making these games, and do you right now narrow it a bit, like the cohorts that you're targeting, gender, age, etc.
Well, I'll start and I'll say that I think there are two main, ways trends are starting, and two main sources for them to be, which is the demand side and supply side. So when I say supply, is as the publisher, where we generate ideas, we research the market and really think what will generate high user value for us, which is really important. Also from the demand side, basically the users, the audience side, what they look for in the app store and social media, and it's basically more about the CPI. And from the developer side, I could say that let's say for makeover one, of course there are mostly females, but I work in a company where all guys are men here, and they like makeover one as well. So I think it's also about making a fun game. So even female related games can be fun for male. So I wouldn't say you should really, target only specific females for the female games, because you may lose others on the way as well.
I would add that hyper casual is and like was and is always about broad audience. The more audience, like less specific in terms of gender or age you can be, like the more successful, the more opportunities for the games to scale you have. In terms of inspiration, of course, it's important to search and like see how it goes within like media coverage. Everything that is in media space is great to look at, like YouTube, TikTok, anything, Instagram, but always it's good to play games. So PC, console, casual, mid-core, like anything. It's like I strongly suggest, I play games, and I strongly suggest for the developers also to play games and to take this inspiration there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think like most of the important things have been said already, but there are, I would say, there's a difference between, of course, we want to please our players and we want to offer them what they're looking for, and saying that games have to be TikTokable now, I think says it all, because all the trends we discussed previously are things that you can observe, like in video, in content on the internet. The goal is to make something that will appeal the broadest possible audience. So of course, for us, it makes sense to go in that direction. Then it doesn't mean that we can't dig an idea that has potentially a smaller, nicher kind of audience, because these kind of games can still be profitable, focusing on something maybe like the aim games in general, shooters, for example, tend to be probably more niche, but also can be more engaging on more specific audiences. So it doesn't, like, both worlds can, in my opinion, totally exist and live together. And with super massive games that appeal to super broad audience, and games that will, on the contrary, engage smaller pools of players, but a bit more.
And with more, let's say, TikTok users playing hyper casual games and going to play hyper casual games, have you seen the shift in the mechanics, genres right now that let's say attract them the most? Maybe they simplified, or maybe just I don't know, the runners, or maybe you see some other mechanics right now, interesting mechanics.
In my opinion, it's mainly a question of themes. Like this impact, we can see it mainly in terms of themes. On the mechanic side, I would say that hypercasual evolves the way it always did, meaning that the main genres remain, well, the classic ones, the runners, the light puzzle, the simulation, since they appeared. Simulation is probably one of the genre that appeared in 2019 is probably one of the biggest, most obvious consequence of this let's say appeal for more mesmerizing videos. I would say in general, but I would say that where we see it is more on the theme of the successful games that we see these days. The all the themes about makeover, about well, what we mentioned earlier about the hypersexualization of the characters, I think this is the reflection of what we see on these kind of platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to visuals as well, as the audience is shifting. So also the creatives are shifting as well, and we start to see, much more aggressive and different visuals to attract more users, to get more engaged with the users. So, I mean, I think we would say that what was aggressive last year is not that aggressive these days, and the visuals will keep continuing to be more crazy as we approach, more social media like TikTok audiences to get more engaged with them as well.
Yeah. So like TikTok is like 13, 25. This is like new gamers, like hungry for content. They are very sophisticated audience that likes to be surprised visually, and like this visual picture image goes with high quality art and fresh, like important to mention, like fresh wow effect ideas that more like a perfect scenario for the game.
For instance,
think-
like at the moment, we see some uplift of, I don't know, superhero theme, which in my mind does not really correlate that much with the female audience as with the male audience. Do you think it's some kind of like still internal hyper casual generation of new ideas, themes, etc., or still those new players they just are more interested in more stuff, or maybe this male audience is coming from some other sources that we are not that much aware of. Maybe it's not TikTok, maybe it's something else that actually pushes new themes to the market.
Well, I think we can't rely only on TikTok for trends, also like live events, like, I don't know, the Olympics and the Corona, they bring more trends and new audiences as well. So it makes totally sense that we will see, as you say, superheroes and fighting. And there was like a realistic game published a few months ago that really performed well. So as I see it, it comes, to have a really playable mechanic, meaning different variation for one mechanic as stacking. We see it since the beginning of the industry, and runners, they are still here, but in different ways, different, innovative ways to use them. And as long as the game is, fun and engaging, I think we will keep seeing, any kind of trends that can really target the broad audience, as Tamara mentioned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
is it irrevocable big trend is to make good games, like good high quality, highly engaging games. This is one of the grounds for any game, like as I mentioned, to scale. So like it might affect the developers development process a bit as well. So the game's production might be a bit more complicated, more expensive, longer, but also it gives priority among other games as well.
and Junda, what do you think about it?
So on the superheroes theme, I think I don't know if we kind of put superheroes in the fantasy theme. I think I personally would. I think what we've seen last year is that there has been a lot of across the globe in LATAM, in Western countries, in Asian countries, we see that the fantasy theme, the fantasy narrative theme has been quite present in a lot of top games by downloads. I think last year was a year where people would kind of want to imagine what kind of different world we could live in, So I think that kind of drove a lot of downloads for fantasy themed games. And in terms of how these casual games may evolve or progress. So I think firstly, this huge bunch of new casual gamers as well as the current market. I think there could be some kind of gradual cultivation to mid-core. Okay, and with this, we've seen a lot of rise of hybrid games like Coin Master, like Covered Fashion, like Homescapes. It's interesting to see how these games have been able to attract masses of the usual casual gamer audience, but have been able to sustain the gameplay time in a way that core games would. And some of these even have high conversion rates too. So that's one trend that we see, a lot more hybrid games, hybrid monetization, hybrid gameplay, and so on. And the other thing is that I think what I call the rise of the Gen Z players, Gen Z players who play top games like Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, which don't just involve regular gameplay, but also creation of assets and content within the game itself. I remember there was a comment from a Netflix executive where they commented that Fortnite is a bigger competitor to them compared
Mhm.
to someone like HBO, because this is due to the amount of time and effort that all these young Gen Zs and also TikTok as well, they invest time and effort, content creation, investing into these games and platforms. So there's a potential for some of these biggest titles to be much more of a game, much more than a game, to be a kind of a platform or even ecosystem.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. Sami, what do you think? Where will the market head, and which genres could evolve into something more, something bigger?
That's always the big question. Where will the market go? I would say that they are like the never-ending trends, the never-ending pool of ideas that we will continue to see and probably see even more. For example, one of the never-dying trend is the kind of restoration and reactualization of past glories of hyper-casual. Um, Games that would, for example, have been already published in 2D and kind of remastered a few years later with better execution, more, let's say, more appealing themes. I can think, for example, of Sticky Flip from Owen Gillette and Voodoo again. That's a good example of, this. It was an old trend, the flippy bottle challenge, and it's now back, but with better execution, more clickbaity theme, I would say. So this is one of the never-ending trend, because as technology continue to evolve, as prod value continue to increase, you can always reuse some old successful mechanics, merge them, enrich them, and turn them into something better and high in more even more pleasant and more in line with current players' expectation. So I expect this to continue to happen, of course. Um, then what I mentioned earlier about the ASMRization of everything, I guess it's also something that will become more pregnant. It's a question of juiciness, but also a question of rhythm, visual satisfaction. This is also something that I expect to continue that we will probably see in many future games. And overall, higher production value, I would say, on the three C's in general, because hyper casual, it's always the same rule. Hyper casual tomorrow will try to improve where it's bad today, and today we know that they are like, we put most of our efforts on finding a good core mechanic, but sometimes we can stay a bit on the basics when it comes to, for example, the camera, which is a bit underexploited in hyper casual. So there are plenty of things that we can even bring to another level, and that's the kind of progress that I can expect.
And do you guys expect the named sources to affect the trends even more? Or hyper casual will kind of dictate what will be shown next on TikTok, on YouTube, on Twitter, etc., and will kind of create the demand for some specific games.
Well, I think it's exactly, as I mentioned before, that there are two sources mainly for those trends, which is, the supply and the demand. So, of course, social media are important to consider, and of course, the publisher side. But as I said, live events, and, as Tamara mentioned, the console games, the PC games, so any place people can get inspiration, and the more they will do it, this is where the market will go. So, at the end, it's about the broad audience and what will attract most of them and where we can find them, and use our abilities, in terms of targeting in the best way, really, get out what we want as publishers, as studios, the best as we find relevant.
Tamara, what do you think?
Um, like I was reviewing App Store charts today, and I saw Cube Surfer and Call of Duty and like other titles that are not specific, like don't have to be necessarily hyper casual. There is a lot of mid-core casual titles, like Project Makeover is like in top 10 like for almost half a year or around a year. So I would insist that, and like we also, another trend, not on the developer side, not on the player side, but on the marketing side from our like publishers paying is like rising CPIs. Like we don't have a lot of cheap CPIs these days. It's harder and harder to find those golden like blue oceans, right? So games should have higher LTV in order, like we as publishers, developers will have this opportunity to scale. So LTV have like LTV comes with interstitials, uh, reward placements, some in-app purchases that's also taking place in some hyper-casual games. So in order we have like higher LTV, a lot of games, and we will see it more and more focusing on meta game. So like core mechanic plus meta. Sometimes core mechanic is a combination of different mechanics. So we can see it's stacking and joystick, for example, like in running, typing and running, or like it can be anything. Like it's more on the dev side, on publishers to advise. But yeah, there is a lot of room for developers and for publishers to experiment, and like current trends right now, actual trends right now in development, because like it takes 2 or 3 months to develop a game, right? So right now we have like female centristic runners like that are all over. A lot of people are trying in that area, but at the same time, in 3 months, like right now, if someone is doing something that might be next thing.
Yeah, that kind of aligns with what Junda mentioned before, that there are, let's say, games that grow slowly into hybrid casual genres that evolve into being hybrid casuals. And on the other hand, we see right now with this trend of like this body positive games, fashion runners, etc., that I would say the monetization there is quite primitive, and rather looking for a very low CPI, the trend, the hype that you can get with quite cheap TikTok users and users from other networks. So, do you think this, let's say, division of games will still like be live in future, or still all the games will move to some kind of genres with more sophisticated monetization, with more ways to, I know, show RVs, to focus on RVs, because I think like all these runners, they focus mostly on interstitials. It's not really bothering with RVs that much.
I can say like shortly. Of course, we will see smaller games like single mechanics, interstitials, focused. That's definitely was, and that it will be there. It's just such kind of games harder to keep for a longer time in top charts due to rising CPIs. That's all.
Yeah, I think we will see the combination exactly, like the hybrid casual and ideal games, etc. Those are things that the LTV is higher and the high user value is really good, and we should aim to see more of these. But as well, I believe some users will also be aiming and looking for the simple ones they can play anywhere and anytime and don't have to be too complex. And as a publisher, we can think about, I don't know, putting a story in the game, so it's another place to make the LTV higher, etc. So there are many options to really see how the games can also be as the complex one in terms of revenue.
Yeah, you mentioned that people will still want to play anywhere, anytime, which is basically the definition of a hyper casual game.
Yeah.
So, would we say that this easy to play anywhere games could be more sophisticated monetization wise? So that it will be still those simple games to play anywhere, but the monetization will be like next level thing. like with the casual, hybrid casual games, etc.?
Well, for sure, the technology is evolving every day, and we see the monetization get more and more, new and sophisticated. So I think even if hybrid casual, for example, we look at it as a more complex game, I still can play it everywhere, although it's more complex and have more content. So of course, it comes with the monetization being more, innovative and more, successful.
I think
I
it comes
think the
to the sorry. I think
sorry,
it
you go
comes
ahead.
to the publisher side. Like for example, we at Line also like think thoroughly, and we want to take and we want to help and speed up. We think it's one of our roles and goals right now. Also, like to speed up this process and enrich, not only suggest like developers some placements, but also like offer some technologies, offer some solutions, and that definitely should like is the next thing that will help developers already take tested and proven ideas.
June, do you want to speak
Yeah,
or?
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. So I was wanting to talk a little bit about the hybrid monetization, because in terms of hybrid gameplay, there's also the rising trend of hybrid monetization, because not one kind of monetization fits everyone. And the main point was about the difference between countries. So firstly, in terms of in-app purchases, I was just looking at some of the top games just now, top casual games just now, like countries like Singapore, Australia, Canada actually can have 4 to 8 times higher ARPU in terms of in-app purchase ARPU than the average of all the other countries. So that there are some countries that pay a lot more for casual games. And then the other thing is that you can have a lot of users and you want to monetize by advertising, and there's also different profile and different availabilities of advertisers, different fill rates as well, different CPIs in different countries. According to how that country is dealing with the global situation. So I think there can be a lot more of a hybrid monetization moving forward as well.
I guess it's the same as between IEPs and advertisements. That in the end, there are some countries with a higher buying power, some of them with fewer, like less buying power, and honestly, like in my experience, I haven't noticed any games that would monetize differently in different countries. In, let's say, hyper casual market, usually it's like the same strategy with ads dominating the revenue sheet. But yeah, I think with hybrid casual games, I don't know what you think, guys. Um, I think the different strategies could apply because, like Junda mentioned, some countries they just don't tend to buy and to purchase things. They prefer to maybe watch ads. Have you seen any trend like this?
I think
Mara?
that China. I think that I don't agree with you completely, because there are some games that are performed like that showed like great performance in China, specifically, for example, in hyper casual, but they don't have to necessarily scaled really well in the United States. Those are smaller examples, but still we can see that. And like Asia, like China, with the TikTok coming from there, like a lot of trends, and like TikTok audience is more sophisticated there, so a lot can be taken, I think, there as well. And like the players there tend to be more need for and ready to pay. So that market can be defined and like separated, especially that it is huge, and like number of devices on like only iOS devices is equal to Android plus iOS devices only in the United States. So we cannot just eliminate and focus on like United States, for example, or like just other like European countries, let's say Australia as well.
So that's talking about future sources of inspirations or future trends. We can say that it's not only about the themes that will be trendy at that moment. We can say even that some countries might affect the global, the worldwide trends. What do you think, Sami?
Yeah, well, I think that everything you just said was quite accurate. I would say that to me they are really there's a huge difference between the specificities of the Chinese market, which is really huge and unique, and also unique because it's that huge and because players here have really other expectations than what you would find on overall, I would say the more Western market. So to me, this is really today the biggest game-changing difference. But also, I wanted to come back on like we all spoke about hybrid games and we all think this like it's been a super trendy topic since Arc Heroes arrival basically, and since then we haven't seen that much successful fully hybrid casual games. We've seen many attempts, but not so many games successfully bringing a super light core gameplay and a super rich meta. This isn't something that we've seen a lot. I can think about the one game from 8sec, which is really nice, where you merge your characters, these kind of games. But otherwise, I think that our main focus, at least as hyper casual publishers, should be maybe to enrich what's like maybe find the sweet spot between current level of hyper casual, meaning very well things that can, let's say, engage pretty much anyone, and the kind of richer meta that would interest a quite broad audience. But we know that, for example, we can't stick a super deep meta on any kind of core gameplay because some players are just not there for this when they download your game. If it's a very light TikTokable game, there's a quite low probability that you can stick, I don't know, super idle village in this game to make them stay forever. So I think there's a nice balance to find, especially on the rewarded videos opportunities. There are plenty of things to try to iterate on, to innovate on. Trying to push new rewarded videos opportunities in each game is also a super nice way to get some interesting learnings on what works, what doesn't. And we see, for example, that any like the most engaging rewarded videos opportunities are usually the ones that are directly linked to the core gameplay of your game, the ones that you couldn't stick exactly the same recipe on any other game. And for example, we have a super nice example here about these kind of things, I think with Slap Kings from Lion, where you had these kind of rewarded opportunities that were directly linked to the stat system, to the core gameplay, and that's not something that you can stick on any other game. You have really to have to build them around your core and to link it to the game experience, because that's the way you can, well, bring more player to actually want to watch these videos, and thus to have a more profitable game.
And do you think, guys, that let's say right now the publishers should focus more on having a higher LTV than lower CPI, or still try to catch these trends, which are temporary, like Tamara mentioned and Daniel mentioned, which are temporary, and with more sophisticated games that could have higher CPI because they do not really comply like with everyone, still like focus on these games with a higher LTV instead of this short-term project that still can bring a lot of money, but could last only maybe 2 3 months.
Well, I think it's a combination. I wouldn't say we should focus on one thing, either CPI or LTV. Of course, there is playtime and retention as well. Also, if you look back on Scarboard, it lasts for a while and it was a low CPI game. So I do think that the combination between the two is very important. And as a publisher, of course, we aim for high user value, high LTV, and low CPI together. And we need to find the balance in the games we publish. How to maintain success to be stable for the long run. Whether it's a really low CPI game or really like idle game or hybrid casual, which are more about the LTV at the end. So yeah, it's all about the balance and combination, I would say.
I think that publishers these days, like Weird Line, try to introduce and to share all the tools that we use in ourselves in order the developers could grow and educate like together with us. Uh, if we talk about uh, everyone, and we are welcome and we invite developers as well to work on lowering CPI as well. We think that content and different variations in the gameplay, different, as Sammy mentioned, camera angles or like color palettes, these all elements, they are not, they cannot be changed only on publisher side. So it's always a partnership and experiments together, like from both sides. And the most fruitful ones were taken from the cases I just mentioned.
Okay, okay. Maybe last topic we can still bring up, which could be super relevant right now, is post-pandemic trends or themes that we might encounter. I think during the pandemic we saw many games with crowd collecting, maybe some multiplayer IO games like Junda mentioned as well. So do you think right now with COVID hopefully cease to exist, we will see more like less games with kind of interaction between players and aides, maybe with less, I don't know, simulations that we could lack in our daily routine, etc. And we will still, let's say, come back to some trends that were before COVID, before pandemic.
Tough question. Tough question. I would say that I'm
Some
not exactly so. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that there are some trends that you could like COVID brought us plenty of players, of course, but I would say that theme-wise, I'm not sure that you can say, okay, simulation games perform super well because players were stressed and they wanted to play extremely relaxing game, for example. Um, we've seen plenty of attempts at the very beginning of the pandemics to use the virus slash health themes to market games to make them more clickbaity again, but uh, didn't work because it's not something that ad networks tend to allow. It's not something that seemed to please players that much. We pretty much wanted to see something else than what we were living, I guess. So I expect the trends to continue to evolve the way they've always did. Again, we will continue to see new trends, like remastered trends of previous, like with summer coming, you're pretty sure that you will see more vacation holidays oriented themes with lighter themes. But I guess this is just the normal course of hyper casual in general, and I'm not sure we will see a huge when people will all be free again, we'll see completely different hyper casual games arrive in the store.
And why
Yeah.
do you think like the market has not really reacted to the pandemic in terms of the themes, genres, etc.?
Yeah, to me that it brought many players, of course, but in terms of really what is happening in the games, I'm not entirely sure about the direct correlation. But maybe those new players and maybe more female players, less classic gamers players had an impact on the experiences that we offer. But I guess this is just the natural cycle of hyper casual, bringing more like people who are not gamers in their daily life, bringing them to the market with way more broad and appealing and yeah, mechanics, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that we play games because we want to have fun. So I'm not sure that the pandemic got people to play because they wanted to see the COVID in their games. And Also, those games usually were not approved when people try to upload them to the stores, as I know at least. But I completely agree actually with Sam. We play the game, we want to have fun, and the life events do affect the trends in terms of the Olympics coming up. So I'm sure we'll see more sports. We'll see some related hyper casual games. But again, the market evolves as it already always have been. So the trends will more exactly as we discussed today, and on the different platforms and sources where the audiences are coming. Say on top of what Stanley mentioned about gamers who are not gamers playing hyper casual. I'm a perfect example. I'm not a gamer, and I've been playing hyper casual because I like it, because it's fun, and I can understand it very quickly. So I think those things are really important to put an eye on as well.
Junda, what do you think?
Okay, so maybe I come from a different. I'm based in Singapore, Asia, and here, I mean, just talking about post-COVID first, because here we just entered semi-lockdown because we had a recent surge in cases. We have around 20 to 30 cases a day, and we just entered lockdown. So I'm in an environment where we don't, kind of proclaim or hope for a near-term victory over COVID yet. But that aside, so in terms of the entire industry, I think the net gain here is that we have a much bigger and broader gamer audience, even if these audiences still tend to spend less time as soon as their cities exit lockdown. So it's such a much bigger and broader game base that that gets comments like from Netflix looking at games as a competitor to time, because people compared to them, because people across all generations are spending a lot of time here. And I think one side effect of one other effect of the pandemic is that I think it's caused a little bit more misunderstanding between different countries, different people from different backgrounds. I think with the amount of attention that people spend on games, I think games can also have the potential to reverse and educate educate and reverse some of these negativity and bias, especially with a lot of the Gen Z players who are investing so much time to create stuff online.
Yeah,
Tamara.
I think that with COVID, we saw increase in the playtime and higher LTV, so people were playing more and spending more. Right now, like with countries and cities relieving and decreasing all the restrictions, we can see uh, like decreasing of the playtime, for example, as well. But at the same time, people like to have fun, and they sometimes leave the real world and play games to just to switch their attention and to spend some time in something that makes their life better, brings them some joy. So that will be like a constant trend and constant approach of approach for talking to our players.
Okay, yep, thank you very much. As we have 5 minutes left, maybe everyone could wish something to the our spectators, and maybe recommend something on the trends of the current future trends of 2021. Who wants to start? Sami?
Again, you throw me under the bus. Yeah, well, overall, all I can wish for everyone who's listening to us is, of course, to find the right game, the right success, the right partner to work in as efficiently as possible. I would say that one of the things that is very interesting right now is how the market evolves in two directions, with on one side the blockbusterization of the best performing games, and on the other side smaller games but that remain profitable, like they won't top the chart for years and stuff, but they will still generate quite interesting amounts of money for the developers who are working on them. And I guess that sometimes for smaller studios or smaller developers, sometimes it might be interesting to not, well, of course, aim for the stars, but sometimes like not dropping too quickly a game that could be interesting, that could be profitable, find the right partner to work with you on it and to spend some time to invest on it, because well, continuing learning on projects that you actually can push, and this is probably the best way to be ready the day you'll have the best ideas of your of your life that will turn into the hit. So yeah, that would be my general comments.
Thank you, Sami. Daniel?
So yeah, I would say that, first of all, I agree that developers, should look on trends, etc. But whenever they have like an interesting idea, they should go for it if they believe in it, even if they didn't see it yet and they don't think it will work. But if they find it interesting for them and they enjoy making it, I think when a studio is working on a game they enjoy to develop, it's shown in the results. Then they may be the next one to bring a new trends to the market. So I think as a studio, they should be very confident in their ideas and what they think, can work, and also find the right partner to give them the good feedback, as if, maybe they already tried similar thing and they want to save them their time. That being said, never lose hope. For example, Perfect Time, is a game tested by 3 other publishers before Moonee published the game. And they came to us like they didn't believe it already it could be published, and also I was a bit, skeptical, like it was guys, what would be different? But I guess the timing and the good partnership evolved in a success. So this is why I always say, like, guys, if you have an opportunity and you feel you can make it, put it until you can't anymore. But yeah.
Thank you very much. Tamara?
Yeah, I agree with previous speakers. First of all, I was mentioning that I think play games, play that is over like in everything that is in the store already, especially in the top 200, that will give you a good vision, a good sense of where the market, where the market is, like where it stands. First of all, then listen to the publisher, I guess, if you found or like find a publisher that can advise you on some directions, of course, and like collaborate with the publisher, because like we do test a lot, much more than one single studio, and sometimes we do know a bit better. But at the same time, I totally agree with Daniel, and like do games that you believe in and that you would like to play your own. That's definitely uh, might be the case.
Thank you very much. And Junda, your final words.
So some gaming trends I personally wish to see. So I would love to see more cross-platform games across different devices, your console, PC, and your TV as well, and aside from mobile. And the other thing is that gaming platforms, I would love to see how they develop platforms like Minecraft, Roblox, and even I see battle royale games like PUBG and Free Fire are also starting to add elements of content creation. And lastly, one part I'm also quite curious about is the area of NFTs, non-fungible tokens in gaming, to see how they can add a different dimension to monetization, especially for core games. And my wish for everyone is to just have a best of health, focus on the most important things and people in your work and in your life. Thank you.
Okay, big thanks to our attendees to this panels. Thank you for joining us and bringing some really good insights about the best hyper-casual trends of 2021. And to all our spectators, stay tuned. Hyper Games Conference has just started and more interesting content to be. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, it was fun.
Thank you,
Thanks
Alex.
a
Thank
lot.
you.
Bye bye.
See you.
Bye.